once again, a very warm welcome to everyone. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be able to take some of your time this evening and tell you about my home country of Scotland and its Celtic neighbour, Ireland. Um, there's lots of reasons why people would visit Scotland and Ireland. Reasons for ancestry, you may have some heritage, family castles there. You might want to go for whiskey, you might want to go for the culture, pubs, music, of course, the fascinating history of these islands as well is a key reason to visit. Or it could be because perhaps you've been inspired by some film that you've seen or TV series that you've seen. But what I'm going to focus on tonight is two of the main reasons why people want to visit Scotland and Ireland. And one of the main reasons really is the stunning landscapes. And to tell you a bit about the landscapes is no better place to start than home. So I'm going to start and tell you a little bit about the route from Glasgow, which is in the lowlands area of Scotland, going up to Fort William, which is in the highlands. This route you can do, whilst you can see in Google Maps, it's 101 miles and you can walk it in 33 hours. And yes, you can actually walk it in a multi-day hike, which I've done myself in the past. You can do it in sections, you can do it in a few days in a row. And the beauty of everything in Scotland and Ireland and the whole of the UK is a hearty day's hike always ends in a pub. So you can refresh yourself before going out in the next day. But you don't have to walk this route, of course. You can drive it, and it's done in a couple of hours, stopping along the way, taking some pictures, stopping in small towns and villages, and just meandering up, enjoying the changing landscape as you go. And just to give you a bit of an idea of the difference between the landscape between the lowlands and the highlands, this is more lowland landscape, so still, of course, very green, like everywhere in the UK and Ireland. But if you like, it's more sort of undulating hillsides, not necessarily dramatic peaks, wide valleys. Lots of farming activity takes place in these areas, of course, as well, because the soil is so rich. And that differs slightly from your more highland landscapes, which is much more dramatic peaks. This was a winter walk that I did a couple of years ago, and you've got these stunning highland mountains in the background covered in snow, and there seems to be a theme this evening. Katie talking about lakes and Bo talking about cenotes, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about lochs, which we call lakes in Scotland, of course. So Loch Ness is the most famous because of its apparent resident, the Loch Ness monster. It's never been fully confirmed or denied as to whether the monster actually exists. Part of the reason being that this is the deepest body of water in mainland UK, and they've never, even with today's modern equipment, they've never been able to verify if this monster is lurking in the depths. So that just adds to the drama, of course, of visiting this beautiful loch, not to mention the scenery, and of course it's littered with castles here and there as well. So that's to be enjoyed. But one of my favourite lochs is a bit closer to home, just about an hour outside of Glasgow, and this is Loch Lomond. This is the largest body of water in terms of expanse in the UK, so it's a very vast loch with lots of little islands on it. Around the loch, on the banks of Loch Lomond, there's little towns and villages. You can go walking, you can go pony trekking, you can go cycling, and it's just a really sort of stunning landscape to enjoy. And what I love all the more about Loch Lomond is it's really where you see the changing landscape from the lowlands to the highlands, because it's right on what we call the highland boundary fault line. So at one end of the loch, you've got these more sort of, rolling hills, and then it goes into more dramatic highland peaks as you go. And it can even be enjoyed on a bit of a grey day as well. So this is a little town called Luss, absolutely stunning, cute little houses there. There's a great seafood bar there. There's a really quaint little pub there as well to enjoy. And you can just go a walk along the shore and along the pier and do boat trips and things like that as well. But once you leave Loch Lomond and you head further north, that's where the Highlands really, come to their own. And one of my favourite places in all of Scotland is Glencoe Valley. honestly, every time I travel through, and I've done it numerous times by car, by walking, it just simply takes my breath away. So you've got basically this valley, which is quite dramatic. There's a road that goes through the middle of it. You've got these dramatic peaks on either side. You know, you could almost imagine the route itself has been there for, you know, thousands of years, and it used to be used for drovers, for moving their cattle and sheep up and down the country. The Highlanders would use it, the military would use it. You could almost imagine, you know, the Highlanders being chased by the Redcoats in some dramatic scenes a few hundred years ago. And there's a lot of history there as well. You know, there's been always a lot of history and blood spilt in the UK and Ireland, so there's been massacres there, and so you've got natural beauty and drama and mystery, and you know, in autumn days, rather than seeing this green, you see a purple hue of the heather, and you can drive along this, walk along it, and there's also opportunities, as I mentioned earlier on, to always stop in a quaint pub or inn. And a lot of these pubs and inns have been there for hundreds of years. This is one which sits in the middle of Glencoe Valley, which is called the King's House Hotel. And it's been there, I think, since about 1750 or so. Obviously, it's had a bit of renovation work on the inside, but it is the original exterior. And when you go inside, you know, it is very cosy. You've got an open fireplace, stone walls, you know, so you do get that cosy pub feeling, which can be enjoyed really throughout the whole of Scotland and England and Wales and Ireland. So that's kind of my highlights of Scotland. Moving over to Ireland, some of the landscapes that I love most in Ireland is actually the coastline. Very dramatic coastline in Ireland. And I'm starting in a sort of lesser visited place, which is in Northern Ireland, in the northeast of the country. And this area specifically, it's called the Giant's Causeway. So for some reason, you've got these geological hexagonal structures. I'm not too sure how they were formed, but of course it then inspired many a myth and legend, because in actual fact, across the water, it connects with an island in Scotland, and it has the same structure in the island of Scotland. So there, you know, is a myth that perhaps it was a bridge that connected them both, that the fairies used or the giants used. So beautiful, fascinating, full of myth and legends. And also, you get some really beautiful coastline that you don't quite expect. You know, of course, weather dependent. And this was the same day as I visited the Giant's Causeway, and it's very changeable. But here we've got beautiful blue skies, giving the water, the Irish Sea, a sort of a turquoise hue. There's beaches there to enjoy as well, and more of these dramatic cliffs. And some of the most dramatic sort of cliff landscapes in Ireland are round on the Atlantic side, and the Wild Atlantic Way, aptly named because it is so dramatic, and the Cliffs of Moher are, you know, extremely beautiful as well. The great thing about it is, you know, in terms of drama, it's not just the cliffs themselves, it's the weather. You know, it's blowing a gale or blowing a hoolie, as we might say, as you've got these winds blowing in from the Atlantic. You've got seabirds flying about, clinging on for dear life to the rock face, somehow managing to nest there. And this is myself and my colleagues when we visited last year in June. The day after that beautiful sunny picture the day from the day previous, this was us in the Cliffs of Moher. But as with anything in Scotland and Ireland and UK, you can get 10 seasons in one day, and I guarantee you later on we were back down to t-shirts again. So yeah, I really love the sort of landscapes and the drama. And often people ask me the question, you know, how would you describe the difference between the landscapes in Scotland and Ireland? And as you can see from this sort of not quite bird's eye view, maybe astronaut's eye view with a good telescope. It's the whole of the islands are very green, of course, because of the rainfall. But what you'll notice is that the Highlands of Scotland, which is really cutting across the country diagonally, and up to the northwest. You can really see that it's much more mountainous there, hence that dramatic landscapes that we touched on earlier on, Glencoe and the snow-capped mountains and so on. And this is where the highest peak in the UK sits, Ben Nevis, just past Glencoe. And then for Ireland, you can see very green, but it's more undulating hills and valleys, plenty of lochs, a different spelling, but same pronunciation. And then you kind of see the more dramatic cliffs that I was talking about that are sort of fringe, certainly the coastal areas on the western side of the country. Another reason why people absolutely love to visit the UK and Ireland is the castles. There's plenty of them. Some of the most famous ones we have here in front of us. On the top left, we've got Edinburgh Castle, which basically perches atop a hill in the middle of the city. And you can, of course, visit it. Then we've got a more highland castle, Elandonnan, which is very near Loch Ness, one of the most photographed castles in Scotland. In Ireland, Kilkenny Castle, which is right in the middle of the medieval city of Kilkenny. So you can enjoy that. And then, of course, it wouldn't be right of me not to mention the Blarney Castle, which is there in the bottom right, where you go and kiss the Blarney Stone for luck. But not only can you visit castles, you can, of course, stay in castles during your visit. And before I go into that, there's also some castles that you can visit as well that are more off the beaten path. Not everyone visits them. And one of my favourites is Dunnottar Castle. So this sits in the northeast of Scotland, very dramatic setting. It's a castle complex, really, which is built on this outcrop of rock, obviously very defendable. It's been there in some form or another since about the 1200s. Obviously, sections of it are in ruins, but sections of it have been, are still there, and you can walk into the rooms. Sections of it have been rebuilt again to show you what castle life would have been like. And again, lots of drama in this castle between the battles between the Scottish and the English. Apparently, the crown jewels of Scotland here were hidden from the English crown to avoid the king being coronated as the King of Scotland. So history, drama, and just stunning, breathtaking castles all throughout. Now, whilst we wouldn't have you staying in Dunnottar Castle, of course, you definitely want a roof over your head. Some of the castles that you can stay in range from luxury castles, such as Dromoland Castle. This is near the Cliffs of Moher in Ireland. So absolutely sumptuous castle, gorgeous luxury services, lovely interiors. You can really live that regal lifestyle. Enjoy walking in the grounds. You can go fishing, horseback riding. Absolutely gorgeous, and this is your luxury castle stay. In Scotland, you can have a similar experience at Inverlochy Castle. This is in the Highlands. Again, beautiful setting with the loch and the mountains behind it, gorgeous interiors. And these are sort of, if you like, I call them the splurge castles. So absolutely, we have 5-star castles. But I am a Scot after all, and contrary to popular belief, it's not that I don't like to spend money. It's I'm canny, or I'm clever with my money. So I've also got some top tips for you about bargain castles. Not bargains because they're not nice, they're absolutely gorgeous. And one of these is Dalhousie Castle. So you can have a castle stay. This is just outside of Edinburgh, and it's pretty much the same price of a 4-star hotel in the city itself. And you can see the interior, very rustic. You'll get that castle feel. Don't worry, they do have mod cons in there as well. There will be some heating systems. You will have your own private bathroom, but you definitely can sort of live that castle life without having to splurge too much. And equally in Ireland, one of the castles that I often recommend to my guests is Mount Juliet Estate. So it's a grand country manor. Again, gorgeous interiors here. It's also got a Michelin star restaurant. It's got a golf course. You can do falconry. You can practice archery. So not only are you sort of living back in time, also the activities you can do are really special and unique to this place in particular as well. So thank you so much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed this wee tour that I've given you.